Alright, let's jump back into Photoshop. And we need to create a tileable floor plane for this guy to walk on. So I'm going to make a new texture on top of this. And let's go ahead and I'm going to hold shift and select all of these and just make a folder and just call this folder character. And again, I'm not planning on making this into any sort of video game. This is more of a teaching tool. So, and then I'm going to hit folder again on this and just name this ground. We can throw all of our ground pieces in here. Ordinarily you'd have these in separate files. So let's hide our character, and then I'm going to hit B, and I don't know, let's see this alien world. I hold shift. It's got a blue ground there, and then we have we've got some pretty human looking dirt underneath it. So I'll just hit G, and let's hit Shift G a couple times. Now with the newer Photoshop, you have to kind of grab these extra tools if you don't see your paint bucket or anything. So let's see if it's in here. There it is, paint bucket tool, and I'll just fill that. So click it a couple times so it goes right up against that. Hit B for brush, and I'm just going to create some rocks. Make them like alien rocks, so we'll do like green, something like this. And I'm going to go ahead and save that out as a PNG. And let's go into Assets, go to Environment. I'm going to make a new folder called Ground. These are going to be all of our ground pieces. And I'll name this ground underscore 01. And inside of here, let's hit save. I'm going to hit OK on this, jump back into Unity, and in our environment, you can see here we've got our ground piece. So if you drag it into the scene, you'll notice that it pops up here. We can kind of move these ground pieces around, right? And I can hit R and I can scale them down, all that good stuff. Now, in order for our character to not go through this, we want to make we need to add a collision. So here you can see there's a regular 3D box collider, then there's a box 2D collider. So I'm going to click on that. You can see the height is pretty high up there. So on the size of this, I'm just going to move it this way, and then I'm just going to sort of make it fit. So our character can't go through it. So something like this. And then I'm going to drag this ground back in, and I'm going to, instead of 01, I'm just going to name this Prefab. And now we have this prefab that we can drag around. Let's go back to our character folder. Here's our alien idol. Now we want to add a couple things. So we're going to drag this guy in too. And you can see because we've sized him up, we use the same folder. They're roughly the same size. So we need to add a couple things. I want to add a circle collider. So I'm going to type in circle. And I'm going to scale that radius down and just kind of move it towards his feet. So when let's move him up so you guys can see this too. So that when he falls, he'll land right on his feet. And then I'm going to add a rigid body, and that's going to give us our physics. We want a rigid body 2D. And then the last thing I want to do is, even though we haven't done anything, I want to grab this player controller script and drop it. So now when I press play, you'll notice that he falls right on there. So we're almost in our first steps to creating our character. So let's go ahead and open this up. And while it's doing that, I'm going to pause the video. Alright, so this is inside of our player controller, so I'm going to zoom in here. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the mouse button. This is going to be, we're going to look at this as sort of a way to play the game through the mouse. So you can see here in our update function, and there's other tutorials if you're needed for a refresher, but just so you know, void update runs every frame. So I'm going to type in here if, and we're going to, this is very basic, but we're going to check if I push the mouse button, and we'll just put left mouse button clicked. So let's see. So how do you do that? Well, Unity has this input, get mouse button down here. And what that'll do is check if a mouse button is pressed. And we want to check if the left mouse button, and it's mapped to that 0 key, is down. What do we want to do? We're going to do debug.log, which simply just prints something out to the console, and we'll do left mouse button pressed. And we didn't say which mouse, we forgot to put get mouse button. There we go. I had get button down. All right, so I'm going to hit Control S to save that. And when we go back in, remember that we attached that script to our alien. So if I press play now and we look down in this left-hand corner, when I click the left mouse button, you can see that it pops up here. Now if we hit Control Shift C, or we go to Window Console Application, which is here, you'll see every time I left click, it registers that click. So we know our mouse button is pressing. And you want to get in the habit of testing all of your code with print statements or debug.log. So you might have seen print. This is another one. This is a Unity predefined one. And this isn't as accurate as debug.log, but if you see if I press play here, and I left click, you'll see we get the same thing.